So the 10th and final game you beat for 2018 is Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines.
Couldn't put it down. It was everything I thought it would be and more. It was way more than actually I thought it would be.
What kept drawing you to that game?
I like RPGs. As a kid, I was really into Lord of the Rings, but as I got older, I just don't really care that much about elves and dwarves. Even though I like the original Star Wars from the 70s and 80s, I'm not really that much of a sci-fi guy. But what I really found out I enjoyed was when I was playing Persona 3, I really liked RPGs that took place in the modern world, and then they had a twist on it to make it special. And they don't make RPGs like that. When it comes to RPGs and gaming, everything is about either sci-fi or fantasy. Either you're flying around spaceships shooting aliens, or you're cutting up orcs with a sword and chasing dragons. What was special about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is that, first of all, I had no idea at the time that it was originally a pen and paper game. When I found out that the game took place in modern day Los Angeles, I was like, ooh, I need to hurry and beat up Fallout New Vegas because that sounds right up my genre. And it was. You had your character sheet that you would level up your stats. You'd create your character, just like a Fallout game or a Dungeons and Dragons game.
What class did you beat the game with?
Gangrel. The thing that I was most impressed about the Gangrel was, one, they had a subclass called Ex-Cop, which automatically gave you a perk and guns. Love RPGs that have guns in it. That's why Fallout is one of my favorites. And I also picked Gangrel because he can summon bats and he can summon ghost or spectral wolves. They're super cool. And so I had in my head this ability to use guns and summon animals, which I've never been able to do that in any video game ever. Never before have I been able to summon a spectral wolf or vampire bats that suck the blood out of your enemies, and yet at the same time pull out a 9mm Glock, and shoot at my enemies with it. Like, it's just so cool. And I'm in downtown Los Angeles where there's a bunch of rival gangs.
Did you think the combat was fair?
Here's the thing that I have to warn. This is what I would warn new players. The combat is clunky in the game, but it's because it's based off of a pen and paper RPG. When you swing a sword in an action game like Devil May Cry, it is not calculating a dice roll to see if you're getting a crit. In this game, when you swing a sword, you are, even though it looks like an action game like Devil May Cry, you are actually rolling dice. So you might swing a sword and it might miss. You might swing the sword and only hit for 1 damage. You'll swing the sword again and you might hit for 30 damage because you crit. It is an RPG, and I think one of the reasons why people hated the gunplay in the Fallout games is because they didn't understand you're playing first and foremost an RPG, but it looks like a first-person shooter. Vampire the Masquerade, which came out before the new Fallout games, you are playing first and foremost an RPG that looks and plays a lot like an action game. And that's something that I would get out of the way and tell them, like, hey, if you feel like the combat's clunky and unfair, remember, this is based off of a pen and paper RPG. If you keep that in mind, then actually the combat is really good.
Did you enjoy the atmosphere, and the music and the graphics and stuff like that?
I could just go through moment after moment after moment. When you start the game in your apartment and you have to go over to your computer, so you log onto your computer and it's set up almost like an Apple II or like a DOS operating system, and you type in emails. It takes you to your emails. You type in, check email, and then your emails are numbered, and you type in your one. So when you're playing the game, you're also utilizing your peripherals as a PC player. And I've always been a fan of games that completely utilize what the console is capable of. So since a computer comes with mouse and keyboard, I want to play a game that uses mouse and keyboard. And Vampire the Masquerade was made only for mouse and keyboard, which is why the menu systems are so good. That's why Stalker was so good. Very first time you get your own apartment, that was super cool. The very first time you step out of your apartment into Santa Monica and start talking to people, that was cool. Here's your start. We're thinking, this kind of looks like Half-Life, and it's because it uses the Source engine. It kind of looks like Half-Life 2, but these people that I'm talking to and the way you choose your dialogue reminds me of a modern Fallout game. But wait, this came out before the modern Fallout games. So this was the OG, you know what I mean? Like, it's awesome. The character expressions, granted I was playing it with the latest patch, but the facial animations of the characters was really good. It wasn't like Fallout 3 where they're like, well, thanks, honey. Why'd you come to me? Why are you even talking to me? I have nothing important to say. I'm missing a rock. Can you travel halfway across the map to pick up this rock to bring it back to me? You will get experience points if you do this. Alright. Bye. And I hate you. Where in Vampire the Masquerade, you walk into the pawn shop and you see Trip. He's like a stoner from Santa Monica. Hey man, how's it going? You know, thanks for stopping by. Can I get you anything? You know? And or like you talk to the businessman, you know, on the sidewalk. He's like, oh, I'm happily married to my work. And I have a wife. You go to the dance club and you start dancing and everyone stops. That's so funny. And then when you get into the elevator and they're playing like that really like goth synth wave music, you're running up there to talk to, let's just put it this way, some really strange vampires with mental disorders. Not only are you like playing this action game in Santa Monica where you can summon wolves and battle gang members and have shotguns and stuff like that and have dialogue that's actually really good. It's the perfect blend of reality and fantasy because you'll walk into a gas station and the gas station attendant there wants to talk to you about his new metal band that he started that he calls Ebola Cereal. And then you'll walk right out and have to fight zombies in a cemetery. Or you're just got finished dancing in a club with a bunch of strangers, you know, and then you get a mission assignment to go to a haunted house to find out what happened to a family that mysteriously disappeared and find out that they were like mass murdered by an axe murderer. The game's all over the place and yet it does everything so well. There's one part in the game that wasn't done well at all. And I found out from doing a little research, it's because half the team got sacked in the middle of the game. And you can tell, because the first part, Santa Monica, some of the greatest gameplay you'll ever experience ever, both in terms of dialogue choices, character designs, missions. You'll go to downtown Los Angeles. You'll meet super cool people there. You'll have to battle against the Russian mafia. Again, great dialogue, interesting characters, very fascinating story, very fascinating side quests. And then after there, you go to Hollywood. And that's when you can notice that things are starting to slowly go downhill as far as quality. It's also one of the more risque parts of the game because they deal with issues like sex trafficking and pornography in it. But I felt like the game tackled it very well without actually being super inappropriate. So the game tackles some very mature subjects, but I noticed that the gameplay started to kind of like dwindle and go down. And then it got to a part where it was just super frustrating. And anyone who's played the game knows what I'm talking about. And there was a point where I actually was very disappointed with the game and very angry at the game. And then all of a sudden they introduce you to the Nosferatu lair and you come across Gary, which I won't tell you who Gary is. I don't know like what happened in that point. I don't know if they sacked part of the team and then brought some of it back or whatever, but you can tell that there was like two different teams that were working on the game. You can tell that like there was a team that really cared about it and there was another team they brought in to finish up the project. The thing about Vampire Masquerade is that the good in it so far outweighs the bad in it that if you stick with it, it's just an incredible experience.
How is the overall story and were you satisfied with how they ended it?
I was satisfied with how they ended it, but I think that the ending was not on the same par as the whole game as itself. Like I thought the journey was what made the game so special and the ending was just some way to wrap it up. The ending was kind of funny. It was kind of humorous if you got the good one. You know, it was awful if you got the bad one.
So you're planning to replay it?
I am. I'm going to go back to it because I think the world of Vampire the Masquerade is my favorite RPG world. It's a world that you can relate to because you actually live in that world in real life. It takes the familiar and puts a twist on it so that it's no longer familiar. It's now a completely different world. Like it's not a game where the vampires and werewolves are the bad guys and you are the good guy going out and slaying them. No, you're a part of this really creepy world of darkness, and you're just trying to figure out how to fit in society with the disease that or the curse that you have, which is being a vampire. And I think that is what makes it more interesting than if you had just been a knight in shining armor that went around and just killed vampires.
Who could you recommend this game to?
I think I could easily recommend this game to anyone who appreciates anything that Black Isle Studio has ever done. I could recommend this game to anyone who appreciates pen and paper RPGs. I could not recommend this game to people who think Call of Duty is the greatest game of all time. I could not recommend this game to people who think that JRPGs are the only form of RPGs and that computer RPGs suck. I could not recommend this game to closed-minded people. And I could not recommend this game to children.
Alright, so if you were to give it a rating, what would your rating be for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines?
It's so flawed, but its good points are so good it covers up its flaws. You can forgive everything wrong with it because the things that they did right in it were done right so well that it makes the things they did wrong seem small. I would probably give this game a 9.3. I don't think it's as polished and as perfect as Doom, but it is my favorite game of 2018.